good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good? Great. Okay, so hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to At America. We are the U.S. Embassy's American Center. First and foremost, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Genara Jusuf, or you can call me Ara, and I will be your MC for today's event. And for those of you new here, At America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center located in Jakarta, and our mission is to provide a space for people to learn more about the United States through our events and also our programs. And our event for today is titled Baca at America, Meet the Author. We are very honored today here to be joined by our lovely and brilliant speaker, Laksmi Pamuntjak, who is a novelist, journalist, and also the author of the book, The Birdwoman's Palate. And on our event for today, we'll dive more into the book and we'll also be discussing our speaker's experiences, particularly how her time in the US has shaped her work and also career. And also, ladies and gentlemen, later in this event, we'll be opening up a Q&A session. So please don't forget to prepare your questions because we will be giving out special book prizes for the first 5 people who ask questions. And finally, now I will be passing the stage to our brilliant moderator. Our moderator for today is the Vice Consul at the U.S. Embassy Jakarta. Please welcome Tara Subramaniam.
Hi, everyone. Like Ara said, thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Tara Subramaniam, and I'm with the U.S. Embassy here in Jakarta. I'm also a big reader and a huge fan of book clubs. So I'm thrilled to be here for Baca at America and to discuss our first pick, The Birdwoman's Palate. And of course, we're so excited to have the incredible author Laksmi Pamuntjak here with us today to talk about her work. For those of you who have not read the book, The Birdwoman's Palate, which is known as Aruna dan Lidahnya in Indonesian, follows the titular Aruna, who's an epidemiologist and foodie, as she embarks on a tour across Indonesia to research bird flu cases. She's joined by 2 of her friends, Bono, a chef, and Nadezhda, a food writer. It is Lakshmi's second novel. Since its publication, she's gone on to write a 3rd novel, Fall Baby, a sequel to her debut, which was recognized at the Singapore Book Awards in 2020, write a memoir, and publish a series of short stories, the English translation of which will be released in the US next year. Lakshmi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
To kick things off, I wanted to ask, what inspired you to write The Birdwoman's Palate?
Well, the decision to write a novel, you don't arrive at just like that, right? You don't sort of wake up one morning and say to yourself, oh, today I'm going to write a novel. So sometimes it takes years for a novelist to embark on a second novel, especially if the first novel was a success, or take years in the making. Having said that, the idea and the energy for the Birdwoman's Palate, or Aruna dan Lidahnya, came relatively and surprisingly quickly after I completed my first novel, Amba, or The Question of Red, sometimes in late 2011. So yeah, we're talking about, some 14 years from now. So it feels like another lifetime to me. And I say surprisingly, because when I embarked on The Birdwoman's Palate, I should have been exhausted. Amba and The Question of Red is this monster of a novel, for those of you who are not familiar with it. And it's some 500 pages. And it took almost 10 years to complete. And in between, I published about 6 or 7 books of very different genres and very different subjects. I think I published like 2 collections of poetry and a short story collection as well, and a philosophical treatise on the Iliad, and several works of translation. And this monster edition, it was to be my last edition of the Jakarta Good Food Guide, which is this tome to good food guide in Jakarta. So, by all standards, I should have been exhausted, but I wasn't, obviously. There might have been a leftover adrenaline or some sort of newly found confidence that really spurred me on to write a second novel. but in hindsight, what was clear to me was that I needed to write another novel that was lighter or more lighthearted, and something that won't take me years to write. And something that I'd be more confident in. And at the time, I had left the Jakarta Good Food Guide for about 3 or 4 years, but somehow the discipline stuck with me. And it was something that I really, really missed after doing a historical epic of such proportions. So yes, I was kind of looking at writing a novel with a culinary theme, but something that is so much more. And as I said, there was the discipline, for instance, of writing about a restaurant as soon as possible, so as to retain the, sort of the freshness of the moment, as well as the mood and the accuracy. And it was a useful habit to keep when you're writing a novel. And it was also fun and unpredictable, and it didn't feel like a chore. Still, it was so clear to me at the time that I did not want to do a good food guide or a good food guide dish kind of novel. It had to be something more. So I started to think of the possibilities, and it became apparent that I wanted to focus on the quest for a complete culinary experience rather than just a list of where to go. But the fiction part was important. So it had to be a literary rather than a culinary project, in which, like every work of literature, the language, the form, the style would be very important. And secondly, I wanted it to be about many cities in Indonesia, not just one city. And third, I wanted to tell stories, not just one, but several, and through different perspectives. Specifically, I wanted to tell the story of the people we see around us when we go out eating. I wanted to tell the story of the couple who sat at the table next to you, for instance, tucking into their food, discussing the food to death. I wanted to know what sort of person he might be. Would he be perhaps a professional chef, thinking about possible experiments in the kitchen, or maybe she was I don't know, a banker turned restaurateur, maybe, having enough dough as well as enough time left in her life to start a second career. All the possibilities were there, and so that was really exciting. It's about people who love food, and then the last but most important creation in mind was somebody like Aruna, somebody who thinks about food 24/7, somebody who might have a day job, but cannot but not think of food. So it's basically the story of, it could be the story of us, really. Yeah. So that was how Aruna was born, and incidentally, it was also around the time that I had befriended a couple of young chefs coming back from the kitchens, the furnaces of the great kitchens of New York, of LA, of London. And they thought that they'd rather be somebody in Jakarta or in Indonesia, rather a superstar here, rather than just a number in the States or Europe or Australia or wherever they might have started from. So these were prestigious kitchens, right? And most of these chefs, they started out doing private business catering, but then they wanted to expand their vision. They wanted to helm a restaurant of their own. So they were hungry. They were brimming with ideas. They were full of creativity, and somehow I wanted to integrate these kinds of characters into the novel as well. So one of those young chefs, his name is Adika Maksi. I don't know if you guys go to Union, of the Union group. He was helming the kitchen from the get-go, and he was one such person. So he became the inspiration for Bono. And so finding Bono was the turning point, really, in the writing process. It is very much like when I first went to Buru Island for my first novel, Amba and the Question of Red. It really actually allowed me to dive into into the novel and make me believe in the significance, of the project. So it became some kind of an anchor, as well as a beacon, a foundation, as well as a guiding light. So then I had the germ of the story. As you have just mentioned, this is the story of three friends, 30-something, independent, hardworking, single by choice, food-loving, middle-class urban professionals with different but equally loving relationships to food. And so there's Bono, the food lover, who is also a professional chef. There is Nadezhda, a food lover who is also a food and lifestyle writer. There's also Aruna, who is an epidemiologist by day, but who is a food lover to boot. And they all go to explore the culinary riches and traditions of the archipelago, which they would never have experienced had they stayed in Jakarta and sampled whatever was on offer. The idea of Farish came a bit later for those who have actually read it, but it's almost necessary to have to one non-foodie character in a novel like this to sort of be the counterpoint, to be someone who's always kind of, a contrarian to this very, very solid kind of food-loving trio. And when deciding on Aruna's profession, I sort of like looked into myself. I've always had a thing for doctors, doctors and vets and medicine. So I thought of epidemiology as a field, and there was also the avian flu case at the time that was on everybody's mind. And at the time, the exaggerated threat of an avian flu epidemic had been making the news for some time. I'm talking about 2009, 2010. And I thought, well, here's a good example to be made of corruption, both on the national and local levels, bureaucratic incompetence, and so on. And there was also something about the nature of the case that lent itself to satire. And I thought all the myth-making, the mass hysteria, the web of corruption involving parliamentarians and corrupt business people, politicians, big pharma, allegations, the big multinationals using Indonesia as an experimental rabbit in vaccine production, each seeking pieces of the pie. So it has the making of a fun and delicious thriller. And so the story began to form. So that's a little background to how this project was conceived.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always interesting, I think, to hear how a story comes to life. We as readers get to see it on the page, but it's fascinating to me to understand kind of how the different characters were born in your head and kind of what inspired you to pick certain things, because you've created this world out of your entire imagination. And it's really fascinating reading the book. I mean, I've been in Indonesia barely a year, but I feel like the book has inspired me to want to travel to a lot of places. I want to try different things. In Indonesia, it does such a great job casting that sweeping picture. But you mentioned when you were discussing, some of the aspects that inspired you when you were pulling this book together, the chef who inspired Bono. And in the book, Bono receives his master's degree in the US. It was part of what shaped his vision for some of the things that he did back in Indonesia. And you also had a somewhat similar experience honing your craft in the States. So in the spirit of At America, I was wondering if you could talk a bit about how your time there has influenced your work.
Well, actually, it's interesting how on the surface there can be no two things that are more different ontologically, metaphysically, than spending time at a writing residency as opposed to the experience of a chef in training or a budding chef like Bono. I have been in more writing residencies that I can count all around the world. I've been very privileged, but I was in two residencies in the US. The first was in 2006, and I'm talking the world famous international writing program at the University of Iowa, which until now I think still is among the best creative writing programs in the world, in the US, certainly, but probably the world. And the second US residency I went to was in 2016, so that was like 10 years later. It's called Art Omi, and it's in the Hudson Valley in upstate New York. I spent 2 months there. I was living in Berlin at the time, writing my third novel, Fall Baby, which was published in German first, funnily enough. But yeah, so I took 2 months to be at that residency. These two residencies were very different, and I was in a very different stage of my career at the time. I mean, it's amazing how much could change you in 10 years as a writer. But you ask how my experience and the experience of a budding chef like Bono could be compared. Well, a chef in training like Bono, who slaved away in the kitchens of some of the greatest restaurants in New York, learning every trick there is in the kitchen to gain as full as possible a knowledge of the workings of the kitchen and of the restaurant business. It just kind of reminds me of what the food writer and critic Jay Parini once said. Like cooking, he said, writing too is a bringing together of elemental substances for transmutation over a hot flame. I really love that. Quote, because seen from this perspective, there's actually a lot of similarities between writing and cooking. They're both the quest for the ultimate wisdom, for the ultimate truth, and the ultimate sort of skill gaining to be the best writer in the case of the writer, and to be the best chef in the case of the chef. Now, what's the difference when you think about it between the hours a writer spend at the desk, in their library, among, burrowing through archives, and being in a room with other writers and mentors, reading, discussing ideas, and sharing writing projects or projects in progress, and the hours a chef in waiting spent in the kitchen, like chopping veggies and learning how to make sauce, learning about spices and ingredients and how to combine them, watching and learning from other chefs, learning how to plate, experimenting on endless possibilities of taste and texture, and getting feedback from her or his peers. So these are our labs, our training ground. They are both our solitude, but they are also a bit like our boot camp, right? So in that sense, I see quite a bit of affinity between the two. And as far as residencies go, I've been to so many. Again, as I mentioned earlier, but my time in Iowa has always been special. Because it was the first time that I spent so many hours of concentrated stretch of time away, ostensibly to write. That's not the only thing that I got to do, by the way. There was a lot of drinking, there was a lot of mucking around, but there were actually writers from all around the world. And when I'm speaking about all around the world, it's really all around the world. It's writers from Korea, Iran, Palestine, Senegal, China, Libya, Croatia, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. And these are world-class writers who have gone on to become household names. So, the residency building itself is like a hotel, and everybody got their own room. They're very cozy and they're very spacious, and really you could decide how much time you wanted to spend or not with fellow writers. But there was always, like group events, so I really bloomed there, and I thought there was solidarity and camaraderie and a sense of empathy and shared purpose and fate, which was very, very good about this kind of residency, as opposed to the solitude, too much solitude probably, that I had in upstate New York. We were stuck in the middle of nowhere, and there was a beauty in that too, because most of the time you don't want to see people. You just want to be, with your work and focusing on what you want to write, and you want your space and your room to yourself. But the meals were compulsory at Art Omi, whereas having shared meals was not compulsory in the earlier residency. So every time at dinner time, you would always have to kind of leave your respective solitude and go to this big dining room and have the most fabulous home-cooked spread together. And there were all these very, very important writers around, and so that could be really intimidating. Dinner time could be very, very intimidating. So I don't know where I was more productive in, but I still feel that a measure of exchange and interaction with fellow writers, the way chefs in training would have with other chefs and with other people down the kitchen line, is very important in the creative process.
Do you feel like you're painting a picture about a lot of exchange, which is amazing, and I think really a highlight of these kinds of programs? But I'm curious, like in the book, Bono comes back from the US and brings kind of some things that he's learned into his work here in Indonesia. Do you feel like your time at these residencies, be the ones in the US or other residencies you've done, like have you taken memories or incorporated things from them into your work, or the way that you've has it changed the way that you approach writing? Like, I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about that.
I think even if specifically the U.S. residency, the first one, did not result in the Birdwoman's Palate, for instance, it actually did do a lot to the creative process behind the first novel, for instance, because I didn't get to publish the Birdwoman's Palate until 2014. But accumulatively, the practice of storing information, building knowledge, sharpening your vocabulary and your range of expression, and thinking about a host of subjects and approaches and literary approaches, that all comes into play. So I can't point as to when a particular inspiration crystallized for whichever book. It is impossible to do so, but I think the cumulative experience certainly makes you a better writer. I mean, it's about clocking the miles. It's about doing the work. It's about laboring, thinking, and expanding possibilities. There's one thing that stays with me. The one wisdom, the one takeaway from these residencies. It's a time when everything is kind of being stored in this big sort of data base of your mind. Everything. It could be about music. It could be art. It could be everything that is part of your passion in life. But everything can be brought to bear upon your writing at any given point on any kind of subject. Because if with food, for instance, the experience of writing other things, or even poetry for that matter, so not just prose, but it really actually gives you different ways of articulating what it is that you want to articulate about something. It gives you a different vocabulary. It makes you think about sound, about texture, about taste, about color, about composition, about silence, even, and all that you gain from just the business of life and observing life and giving voice to it. So I think all residencies are important in their own ways, but because the U.S. residency in Iowa was my first, it really did stay. It had a lasting effect.
It's always cool to hear. You've talked a little bit about your process and kind of how being at these residencies helped you, but specifically, I'm curious, when you were writing the Birdwoman's Palate, what was your favorite part about it? And then conversely, what was your biggest challenge?
For sure, the dream part in the novel. I don't know how many of you have actually read the book. May I know? Okay. Oh, okay. I know him. I don't know you, but do I know you? Oh my God! Hi. Yeah. So the dream part is not in the movie. So if you guys have read have not read the novel but have watched the movie, the dream sequences that precede most of the chapters, not all, they are not there. But this is a way into talking about all the kinds of things that are related to food in a way that doesn't have to be connected to the chapters that follow. It doesn't have to bow to any kind of logic, but it is at the back of your mind, and it employing all the aspects of writing and of the prism of your world, where you can get inspiration from music, from art, from politics, from journalism, from history, from anything really that you care about. So those are the two aspects that I love the most. And then, of course, the other thing is that the Birdwoman's Palette allows me to combine food observation with the sociological aspect also of an experience like this. And you can have all the elements that fiction can offer, that the novel can offer, drama, fictional characters, character development, sociopolitical observation, and something that is actually important, which is a plot. So yeah. So there's also all these other surprises that I can't even count now because there are far too many.
That's awesome. It's really cool to hear. I loved the dream parts of the book. For those of you who've only seen the movie, definitely it's a cool part of the book. I think I found it really interesting in terms of getting a sense of the characters' minds and kind of some of their subconscious in a way that I don't see very often in books. I thought it was really interesting. So I'm glad that that was fun for you. And
Yeah.
of course, like you said, the descriptions of food are such a core part of this book. So much of it is about food, and you can feel from those descriptions, I felt as a reader, how much you love and care about Indonesian food and the culture surrounding it. I was wondering if you have a favorite restaurant or Indonesian food memory that you could share with us, or if any of your favorite spots or personal culinary experiences made their way into the book.
Well, being asked what my favorite restaurant is like being asked what my favorite book is. I mean, I don't have an answer to that because there are restaurants for every season, for every stage of your life, and they're just too many, too various. But I would say if there is an all-time favorite out of my experiences food, I have to go back to my childhood. I had a very rich culinary experience with my parents. My father was a true foodie, and my mother, she's just fantastic at everything. She's just a perfectionist. She was able to create for me a world where I had the most fabulous kitchen, where we experimented with a lot of things, and there was not a single day in memory that I wasn't eating well, you know. But then there was also the tradition of going out because my parents just loved going out, especially my dad, and there was a favorite destination for us when I was growing up in the 70s. So now I'm betraying my age, but in the mid 70s, the entertainment complex called Block M was already starting to team with a lot of Korean restaurants. It really actually it saw the beginnings of a very solid Korean and Japanese restaurants. And we used to go to several restaurants there. There was a place called Toragi House, which was one of the first Korean restaurants in Indonesia. I believe, where they were so kind, they were so welcoming, and every time I went there, I was a child of 5 or 6, and they would allow me to muck around in the kitchen, and they would always ask me how my week was, and I was able to to try out everything, and so the appreciation for diversity has started very early for me, and there was also this very specific to Indonesia Chinese cuisine in the vein of Nelayan or Yunnan for those who might be familiar with these types of Chinese cuisine. The seafood base, the 2 restaurants that we used to go to were called Koka and Ratu Bahari. Ratu Bahari is very much like Sate Senayan seafood, but the seafood part. And they had the best, this red colored, very specific to them, a red colored corn and crab meat soup. It's out of this world. I don't think that you can find it anywhere else in the world. Here, maybe they will still have it in old Chinese restaurants like Sanur in Kota, Sanlong in Pik, as well as maybe Yunnan, if it is still around. But yeah, so these childhood experiences really really stay with me. And every time I go to Block M or I encounter beautiful tasting food, I will remember my father. I mean, he passed away in 2020, and you know it broke my heart because he had instilled this deep love for gastronomy, for the simplest and the most complex cuisines, and that sort of openness to to cuisine and cultures. So yeah, I don't know if actually any of those places make it into the book. It's been a while. I don't know, but maybe it's filtered in somehow.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think, to your point, that when you have these experiences, they stay with you, whether or not it's a conscious effort to incorporate them more so kind of the way they shape
Yeah.
the way you view food and how you consume. I think that definitely is
Yeah.
apparent in the book. I would love if you have a moment to read us one of your favorite scenes for the book. For those in the audience who haven't had the pleasure of reading it yet, give them a little taste of what the book has to offer.
Okay. So, yeah, I have, especially of the dream passages, there are just so many to choose from. But this is a particularly affecting one for me, and not just because it's about Bono. Bono is played by Nicholas Saputra, by the way, in the movie, which I never foresaw. I thought Nicholas Saputra was going to produce the movie instead of actually even starring at it, but he was then Bono. But it's because this passage gives some idea of what is involved when you're really trying to dissect what is beautiful and what is special about food. It gives vocabulary to the culinary experience, the tasting experience. So yeah, bear with me, and it's chapter 2, and it's actually called Bono, and it is about Bono as dreamt by Aruna. One night I dream about my friend Bono. It's a scene from his childhood, and he's like a character in a movie, someone outside himself, someone unreal, an actor playing a role. In the opening shot, he's standing on a beach, savoring the salt breeze, or so I imagine. All of a sudden, he turns away and walks toward a voice calling him from the main road. Something in his gaze changes, reminding me of a frightened deer. He enters a restaurant, one of the many along the street. I don't see who is calling him. A few minutes later, I, too, go into the restaurant, and I see him sitting at a table with a middle-aged couple. The woman tries to stroke Bono's hand, but gently he brushes her fingers away. He seems tense and keeps his gaze lowered. In front of him is a bowl of piping hot soto. I can't see what kind, and it takes me a few seconds before I realize that Bono is being subjected to some sort of tests administered by the man. Come on, concentrate, says the man, his expression fierceness itself. With great effort, Bono takes a spoonful of soto, then a second, and a third. What do you taste? Candle nuts and turmeric, and what else? Lemongrass and kaffir lime leaf? So which one, lemongrass or kaffir lime leaf? Don't be wishy-washy. Lemongrass then, or both. Yes, both. Are you sure? Bono doesn't answer. He seems to be having difficulty breathing. Are you positive? Yes, sir, both. So what kind of soto do you think this? What is its provenance? Bono pauses again. I can see his heart beating wildly in his chest. Madura? Well, which part of Madura? Again, Bono hesitates. The man ignores the woman's attempts to intervene. I don't know, Father, Bangkalan, Sumenep perhaps? Yeah, Sumenep. Now, think, what color is it? Yellow, father. Have you really forgotten? Isn't soto from Sumenep white? Well, in that case, this must be Bangkalan style soto. The broth is yellow, and it hasn't been made with tripe. Also, it hasn't been served with any potato fritters. For a moment, the man regards his child with a wild fury, as if he wants to beat him for not being smart enough, for stuttering like an imbecile, in short, for not being worthy of being his child. With an irritated flourish, he draws the bowl away from Bono and toward himself. Child and mother look on as the man slurps the soup demonstratively down to the last dregs. Then, as if this last gesture isn't brutal enough, the man asks the waiter to bring them an assortment of banana leaf wrap bundles, all kinds of pepes, and his close relative, botok. He unwraps a botok, exposing its moist, grated coconut flesh, and holds it out to Bono. Go on, try it. Bono does as he's told. What kind of botok do you think this is? Vegetable, father. The man pounds the table with his fist. Vegetable, meat, fish, he hisses. How dare you speak in such generalities? It shows you're just like everyone else, that you can't be bothered to use your brain, that you're too lazy to think. Bono nibbles a spoonful, then a second, and a third. Fiddlehead? He asks in a whisper. In an instant, something changes in the father's expression. There's a sort of cautious anticipation in the depths of his gaze, mingled perhaps with hope, with joy even. And I know that Bono sees it, and that for a few seconds he allows himself to hope as he's never hoped before. Do you like it? Yes, sir, I like it. Why? Explain. But for some reason, Bono doesn't speak, as if there's something bold in his throat he's trying to keep down. At long last, he replies, because it tastes good. 1 second passes, then two, and then, with an expression of utter disgust, the man stands up, tosses a few bills at the cashier, and leaves. When Bono emerges from the restaurant, a cigarette between his fingers, I run up to him. His mother is nowhere to be seen. Hey, I say. Hey, he says. So, that's fear, eh? Make you lose your tongue? Strangely, he seems relaxed. Not necessarily, he says calmly. He isn't stuttering anymore. He isn't the same Bono as the Bono in the restaurant. So, fiddlehead, botok, botok pakis. I know the taste intimately, Bono continues. One nibble and my mind begins parsing out each distinct sensation. Sweet, spicy, salty, sticky, the spices, the fibers. I assign them adjectives, I assign them colors. I weave each sensation into a swell of verbal music until each and every aspect of the dish has been translated into a magician's litany that binds us all under its spell. Believe it or not, in that respect, I am him. I am my father. But why didn't you point that out to him back there in the restaurant, I asked. I thought his affirmation meant the world to you. I didn't want him to think we were alike, because that would mean that he was someone worthy of respect or of emulation, and that would mean I had lost. It would have meant mother had lost. But my father is really dead to me. And he takes a long drag on his cigarette. And furthermore, he said, tasting food is an act of pleasure, and writing about that pleasure is an artistic gesture. But at the end of it all, the highest art, the truest art, finds its expression in satiating the hunger of others. That's why I became a chef. Here you go.
Thank you so much. I love that passage as well. That last line about art just has stuck with me since I read the book. But now we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So if anybody has one, got one in the front. Start with you. Yeah, go ahead. Whatever you'd like.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Diana. This is the second time I saw Laksmi Pamuntjak reading her book. The first one is in Ubud Writer, Amba,
Ah, yes.
2013,
Di mana?
di restoran Prancis, di Ubud
Oh,
Writer
yes,
Reader,
okay.
2013.
Some years ago.
Yeah, long ago. So, and I already read your book, Selaput Biru, so I love it.
Thank you.
I love your story, your memoir, and also Kitab Kawin. My question is, what is your signature dish at home? And are you gonna write something, share your memory about your writer residence, both in Europe and America? I mean, I would love to read a book about, if you someday write a book about writer residence,
Oh,
your experience.
Okay. Okay.
And your boleh bahasa Indonesia nggak sih?
Boleh. Tentu.
Di buku aku sorry belum baca ini tapi aku udah nonton filmnya. Kadang aku pengen baca bukumu tapi bukumu selalu 400 halaman lebih.
Nggak juga sih, ini berapa ya?
400
300.
lebih. No, 400.
Oh, yang mana?
Ya, ini Fall Baby juga 400-an.
Oh, masa? Oke deh.
Can you ever write something about 250 pages?
Oh,
Because I have so many TBR. Kamu buku kamu tuh kata-katanya tuh banyak yang kayak contoh apa sih buku yang terakhir tuh
Selaput Biru.
Kayak aku nih kayak kok banyak kata-kata bahasa Indonesia yang aku nggak tahu dan baru tahu. Jadi kamu punya kosakata yang sangat luar biasa dan tulisanmu sangat keren. Aku suka.
Thank you.
Aku suka cara tulisanmu.
Thank you.
Oke, thank you. Tadi pertanyaannya itu ya.
Okay, residency, a book based on my residency experience, as well as my signature dish at home.
Yes, thank
Oh
you.
God, okay. Well, I'll try to. First of all, I just wanted to clarify that that my last two books, Kitab Kawin, which is a collection of stories on women in relationships, which is now going to be published in the U.S. in 2026 next year. That's not 400 pages, I think. As Selaput Biru, certainly my memoir of sorts, is also something like 300-ish pages. But as to which is the easier question to answer, there is no signature dish with me because I think I evolve with age as well as with the demands of age. I mean, I used to make a lot of. Actually, okay. So until about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a cook at home, cooking mainly Indonesian food, and I would have some staples at home, which is my terong blado. I love terong blado, and I just I would have it almost every day, so to speak, and that would be like a sautéed vegetables of all kinds, and that was courtesy of my cook. But in the last 5 to 6 years, I've been cooking mainly myself for me and my husband because we're no longer living in the house that I spent many years in, but we have moved into an apartment, and it's easier to cook more practical dishes for the two of us. So my go-to would be a bowl of pasta, like the easiest kinds, like a aglio olio, a peperoncino, or an amatriciana, and carbonara for my husband, and all kinds of pasta sauces, really. And then I just eat a lot of vegetables. So yeah, from time to time I try to make my own soto, but it's often very laborious work. It's very labor intensive, so I would just do the practical thing, buy an Indo food prasaji thing, and then modify, and that's it. That's dinner. As to a book specifically on my residency experience, I think I did I think that the Selaput Biru, which is my memoir of sorts, which I wrote during my Paris residency in fall of 2023. That is, in a way of talking about how I look back on my life at my age now, using moments that resonate with me during the residency. So anything that sort of give me a way into the past, whether it be the strains of music or live classical piano being played next door from my room, for instance, or the experience of just walking the streets of Paris, or seeing a church, or being in a beloved museum, looking at paintings that I love, and paintings that I have never seen, and wake something up in me. You know, anything that would be that would illuminate a part of my past. That's how I kind of gave meaning to that residency. It was through that residency that I was able to feel and remember and give meaning to these reminiscences. So as to whether or not I'll write a memoir specifically about how all of these residencies, all these different residencies have given meaning to me, maybe one day. But I'll try to keep it. But I'll try to keep it under 300 pages. Ah, yes, yes, yes.
Like your residency and about writing, a writer always write something about writing. Like I'm not always, but many, and we like to read something about your writing experience and your writer residence
I
from
read.
the start 2006 in America.
I will say I think this
Well,
book
that's
talks
my
about
request.
this book talks a lot about writing, especially about food writing, and I think that builds upon your experience.
Oh, we're talking
Certainly.
about the memoir.
No, the
Oh,
Birdwoman's
this.
Palate talks a lot
Yes.
about
Yes, but
process as
maybe
well.
maybe a little bit more skewed toward the dilemmas, both professional and personal, because you can't separate the two. I mean, whatever stage that you're in your life, the emotions that you're feeling, all the yeah the state of your being at any given point when you're writing, of course it affects the writing. But in the Birdwoman's Palette, I think I talk a lot about food writing, in particular, because there is Nadeshda, the character Nadeshda, who a lot of people think it's based on me, funnily enough, how she related her dilemmas to Aruna. I remember there's this one chapter actually that is devoted to that, and so there she was saying, it's not easy to write about food from the point of view of being an Indonesian, but who looks and speaks like her. I mean, she's conversant in so many different languages, not just bilingual, but many different languages. But she always carries her Indonesianness around her, so she has that. She shoulders this, feeling of responsibility for sort of representing Indonesia and Indonesianness everywhere. But she feels somewhat of an outsider in her own country, and she wants to write about other things other than on matters Indonesian. So that's one of the dilemmas that she was facing, and that relates quite a lot to how she approaches food writing as well. Her vocabulary, because of course for a lot of people, even when I was doing the Jakarta Good Food Guide in the early 2000s, it was not the time of digital media yet, and I was probably one of the only a person crazy enough to be doing something like that, to be taking on a guide of that magnitude. I mean, for a lot of people, talking about food is something that is seen as a luxury. I mean, people are not, people were having difficulties having access to food. People were not, but there was something distasteful about talking about food, for instance, and dissecting it to death, and talking about where to eat and so on and so forth. It's seen as a luxury. So this kind of sensibility, of course, affects the food writer when she or he is trying to to extol the fact that there's so much diversity in the city alone. Yeah, so yeah, but that's mainly food related. I think the memoir Selaput Biru, if you've read it, you'll see that there's quite a lot of um, reflection, meditation, or musings on writing, and it's just different manifestations. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Now you give me some interesting thing. Then I will read this book, because when I watch the movie, it's not.
I know,
It's
yeah.
different. It's
It
more
is
like
different.
flu burung.
It is different.
Nothing
Yeah.
about the writing. Okay, thank
No,
you.
no. In fact, there is not a single word that comes from my novel in that movie.
Oh wow.
Not a single sentence.
Oh wow.
But having said that, I love that that the characters feel true to to their creation. They take on a life of their own in so many ways, and for that I am grateful. And I've always believed that when a work of art is transformed into a different medium, then it ceases to become the original artwork. It's become a different artwork altogether. It's so I was always very very certain about that. I accepted that in the beginning. But yes, I mean there are a lot of dimensions that are not covered by the movie that are in the novel.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. Anybody else have questions in the audience here? Got one up there. Yes, I see you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Khairul. I want to ask about, in your novel, food is the more than just sensory experience. It's about memory and then identity and have political issue. Why is food such a powerful narrative tool for you? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's that is kind of the whole point of writing about food, right? Because it has to mean a lot to you. I don't know. I mean, food is not just a metaphor, but it's also uh, you know. And the embodiment of how you look at culture. It's a way in, it's a gateway into culture, and everybody has an opinion about food. Even if I mention that for a lot of people it's about survival, and you don't sort of talk about food in a way that everybody does. Everybody has a different opinion about food, but they will have an opinion about it, and it and writing about food is also something, and this is something that I really experience very powerfully when writing the Birdwoman's Palate. That writing about food is the best way to write about everything else other than food. It codifies and conceals all manner of human um, um, emotions and states of being, their delusions, their atrocities, their dreams, their desires and their disappointments. They, somehow from food, it kind of illuminates the bigger picture of a human psyche, or of a human, or of an existential situation. And so this is what I found out to my pleasant surprise in the Birdwoman's palette as well. I mean, you set out going for a rujak soto in Madura, which you've never tried before. I mean, that was one of the culinary discoveries that I had that still stays with me until now. And then all of a sudden, you hear other stories around it. You go to a roadside warung in Surabaya, and all of a sudden it opens up an entire universe of a story of a father's sacrifice for his son. This warung is emblematic of that. You go to Madura during the local elections, and then you find yourself to be driven by a driver with this encyclopedic knowledge of jamu, and then all of a sudden you're taken around, in a tour of jamus, and then it also opens up somewhat a discussion, like really in-depth discussion about political Islam and how it was changing the landscape of Madura at the time. So, all the stories around food, you can't plan them, and that's one of the nicest things about writing about food, because I mean, there is the socio-political observation that's probably is going to be integrated into your writing anyway, because you are interested in those things on current affairs, by nature, but you cannot plan everything else that you discover along the way of food, and that is one of food's gifts.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that question. Obviously, this book talks a lot about that, and it's lovely to hear you talk about some of the food memories that have made their way into the book, and the way that you use food to talk about bigger issues. There was a question over here, I believe. Yes.
Thanks, Laksmi. My name's James. Laksmi, the theme of the book is your observations, or the author's observations, of a Jakarta societal elite. Elite in particular as relates to food and drink, but elite nonetheless. How do you think that Jakarta societal elite has evolved over the decade or so since you wrote the book? Is it as elite as ever, or is it opening up and becoming more egalitarian? Tell us a little bit about that side of things, if you can.
Yes, so we're talking about now as we speak, we're talking about 20 years since my first foray into food writing, which is with the Jakarta Good Food Guide. The first edition was published in 2000, and at the time there was not the kind of level of democratization, of food that we are seeing now. For instance, so there's really quite a bit of leveling in the last 20 years. People are talking much more about food, the access to information about food, opinions about food, and even the possibilities of actually talking about food without having to be a professional critic. It's open to everyone, so everybody can have and air their opinion about food very, very easily nowadays. So that is I think is a real change, and there's quite a lot also of a shift in terms of looking at the restaurant industry as a possible career. It used to be that parents would be appalled and would be shocked at the idea of having their kids say, I want to open a restaurant, or I want to work in the kitchen of such and such, or I want to study at the culinary academy. I mean, even at the time, there was not that many culinary academies, but now it's starting to mushroom quite a bit. And people, the way people talk now about food, it no longer has that sort of, peripheral, significance to it anymore. So yeah, so I'm not sure if that answers your questions, but it is no longer seen to be to be something to scoff at. People are not even doing food as a second career anymore. You know, this is their raison d'être. It's their passion, and now the younger generation, they're embracing the possibilities and wanting to be actors in this evolution, and very much so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I saw a couple more hands. Okay, over there. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Laksmi. My name is Jenny.
Hi.
Do you ever, excuse me, do you ever feel like the temptation of curiosity when you are researching, but then there's like diverting you away from your writing? What will be your advice to deal with this? Thank you.
I can't quite.
just-
Sorry, kurang kedengeran. Gimana?
If you can hear, I can.
Yeah. Yes.
So I can repeat the question.
Thank you.
So she was asking that when you are researching these books, and you could have a tendency to get diverted. How do you keep yourself focused? Yeah, and any advice you have for when you're doing research, kind of gathering the information you need without taking tangents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I have to say that the levels of distraction for every project of mine, they're not the same. With my first novel, there was a lot of trepidation on my part. I was the sheer moral responsibility of writing something that is not directly. It was not my direct experience. I was merely appropriating other people's history, and it was a very difficult history. That gave me this sort of focus, but at the same time to stay with the issue, to keep my research, to have a certain discipline about staying with the subject and not sort of do other things. But because I was still a baby writer at the time, I'm talking about my first novel, yeah, because I was a baby novelist. I was not experienced yet, and I even had to publish, as I mentioned in the beginning, 5 or 6 books in between on so many genres. But I almost needed the distraction because I realized that I had to gain a little bit more in life wisdom and in practicing writing as such, and not just about the main topic that I was researching, but I had to be. I just had to have more practice, and I had to. So there's that. So I allowed myself the distractions of actually even publishing all these different books in between in order to complete that one big book. But with this, for instance, Birdwoman's Palate, I did it maybe in 9 months. Of pure concentrated effort. I allowed myself no distraction, but I was also, because I was so into this book, it gave me all the energy and drive and focus. So yeah, so no distractions there. With this happened to me again when I was in Paris, when I started this sort of memoir of sorts, Selaput Biru, or Blue Iris. I started it then, and I completed it at the end of my residency. So that I'm talking about 2.5 months of pure inspiration. It was, yeah. So it varies from project to project. I'm starting to become a lot more distracted these days, and I don't know why. Yeah, but I hope I'll overcome this very soon, for my own sake.
Thank you. Any other questions? I saw a couple more hands over here earlier. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Laksmi. Thank you so much. I'm May,
Hi.
and I've also read some of your other work like Amba and Kitab Kawin. And I was wondering, why did you always put women as the central, or female as the central of the main characters? because when I read Amba, I was so interested in like the stories is just like so much drama, so much stories in there, and I was wondering why you put women. And I was wondering also, as a female author, did you feel like you write a female characters differently from male characters writing male authors writing female characters? And then the second questions would be like, you said that the favorite part of this book, especially, was not in the movie, and I was wondering how you feel about it.
Ah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to answer your first question. Why do I take? Why almost invariably it's a woman? It's a woman's story. I think perhaps for the simple fact that I am myself a woman, and there are experiences that are, even though they're not, it doesn't mean that a woman cannot get into a man's head and write about them in an informed and thoughtful enough way. But there are experiences that are specific to women, and they're located within. There's certain experiences that only women can experience, and so it's probably easier for me to get into the head of women and to feel sort of the bodily as well as how they would react and feel about things. Having said that, though, I tried to give whatever I could to my male characters as well in Kitab Kawin. If you, it seems like you have read Kitab Kawin as well. I try not to do a male bashing exercise, right? I tried not to, even if there are so many stories in Kitab Kawin which are to do with abuse in the hands of men. But I try also to see, to see things from their perspective, even though Kitab Kawin was really actually written for women, about women, and from women's perspective. So yeah, but I would imagine Kekasih Musim Gugur, actually, Fall Baby, if you have read it, you are. There is a special tenderness that I reserve for the father figure, for the father of Sri Kandi. Sri Kandi is the main. She's the protagonist. She's the daughter of Amba, because there is something that I would like to make, a point that I would like to make about adoption, about the relationship between father and daughter, mother and daughter, but especially with fathers whom the daughter has lost. So yeah, I think I try especially hard with the father figure, and I think it's a projection probably of what I would like to feel about the fathers in my life as well. But other than that, I'll stick to women. Just like, yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. Any other questions from the audience here? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, do we have time?
Yeah, go ahead. We have a little bit of time.
About the Aruna dan Lidahnya, I watched the movie. Honestly, I don't like the movie, but when I hear the story here, it's different. So here's the thing: when I watch Life of Pi, then after watching a movie, I buy the books. Happens so many times. Not like reading the book, then watch the movie. No, I do the other way. So if I watch the movie, I like it, I buy the book. So I don't like the movie, but now I know the book is interesting because after I hear, because the good thing is not in the movie. So maybe the writer need to concern about the movie when somebody adapt your novel, because people gonna buy the book if they like the movie.
Yeah.
That's also a good
Many
question.
like
It
that.
is a good question.
Thank you. What was your role in the adaptation?
It
Yeah.
is, and thank you for thank you for pointing that out. This is at the risk of course, saying something that I don't particularly want to say about the movie, because I did give you my take on how I feel about the medium, shift already. But it was my first experience of having a work of mine adapted into a movie, and and in hindsight, if any of my other projects would be adapted into a movie, I would have, I think I would insist on having more say for the script. What I understood was the the mission of the movie at the time, of the team, was that they wanted to make the story younger, for a younger demographic. But in so doing, it kind of, it sort of exactly. Thank you, Raya. So it didn't, because there's so many dimensions to the movie. I'm not just talking about the public health, corruption, the avian flu part, all the and the not so savory aspects of Indonesia that I would also like to highlight in this. And so this is not just about culinary riches. Not only does that not get represented in the movie, but there's so much to the joy and discovery of eating that is not there. There are about maybe 3/4 of the destinations in this novel that is not in the movie. This is all the complexities of the characters that don't come through. And then the, well, I don't want to this to be a spoiler other for those of you who have not seen the movie, but the conclusions, the denouement of the movie is also not it's not the novels. It's not what the novel's about. So there are many dimensions that are missing from the movie. I myself have always believed that one should read the novel first and then watch the movie. But as I said, I mean, if a movie can stand on its own, it should. If it, like The English Patient, for instance. I mean, you read the original novel, and it is fabulous. It's out of this world, and then you watch Anthony Minghella's adaptation of it, and it is its own work of art, and that is possible. But how many movies can you speak of that that do that successfully? It's not that many. I mean, if there are, you'll remember them.
Sorry, what I remember about the movie is it's more focused about the flu burung rather than the title Aruna dan Lidahnya. That's what I remember.
Right.
Who care about flu burung? Me, I don't care. So, so it's kind of bored. So,
Right.
but I think, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I like the way that you're speaking about adaptations and the differences. And like you said, once you've committed to something being adapted, it becomes its own work of art. And I think, this is one example, but there's, like you said, English Patient. There's a lot of other examples of how, you can have two very different creations that stem from the same place and enjoy them as they are on their own and for their similarities and their differences.
Mm-hmm.
That's about, quick question. We've got time for one more quick question. Okay.
I mean, since we're on the subject of adaptation, we both talk about the difference between screenplay writing and novel writing, and they're two very completely different forms of writing and styles of writing. So just going on this thread, I'm interested to, so you're saying that there was no conversation between you and the filmmakers to make this in? Because adaptation, it's an art to adapt. A screenwriter really needs to get into the heart of a novel and then try to extract like the spirit of it and put it into words and put it into another kind of medium. And so the scriptwriter never had a conversation with you or just sort of like bounced ideas with you?
Okay, so it's more complex than meets the eye. Actually, when I was first approached by Edwin, our mutual friend Edwin, as well as Nico Saputra, who read the book maybe within a week of its publication, and were excited about it and keen to have a movie adaptation out of it. The conversation that we had at the time convinced me that they were looking at aspects of the novel that I find to be the strength of the novel. Like they were looking at the dream part, they were looking at all the more literary parts, and even Nico at the time, he was very, very much more interested in the political part, the sociological part, rather than the culinary. Even though, of course, the culinary thing is a given, right? So it's always been its main strength. So and knowing Edwin at the time, I just somehow trusted that he would give it this sort of treatment, cinematic treatment, that would be in keeping with our shared aesthetics, and that was one of the reasons why I like his work, his approach to cinema, to movie making. So that was why I said yes. And then there was some time passed until they went back to me to say, yeah, okay, so we've got the funding, and then let's just do this. And by that time, I was already so very happy that it was going to materialize. And then I thought, precisely because Aruna dan Lidahnya is the least cinematic of my work at the time, I thought, anybody with the courage to take it on, they should know what they're doing. But then, as it turned out, yeah, it's taken out quite a lot out of this novel. Plus, it's turned it into something else. But at the time, I just did not have the energy anymore to intervene.
I think it is the art of adaptation. It's keeping the spirit, but I think they actually tried to honor everything, but couldn't. You have to make decisions as a scriptwriter.
Yeah,
it's all
sure.
about decision making, and you can write 300 pages. We can only write 90 pages or 100 pages. So
we did have a conversation, though. We did have a conversation that I thought was crucial to the whole project moving forward. But I just wasn't. Maybe because I was inexperienced at the time, or maybe I was in some ways in denial when I already saw the script and see how, you know what it's like, like you have all these sort of expectations, but you also have, a certain reservations that you don't want to particularly articulate, and then when you actually see the thing, it's all blurred, right? It's all blurred. You're not really reading the script, but you have all the goodwill. You say to the team, yeah, okay, whatever you feel like. It's there's another screenwriter. She has done to this work of mine something else. Then I will just have to respect that. But then by which time, of course, everything was too late.
Feels like indicative of the saying, you just have to trust the process, where it seems like you were just kind of along for the ride. And like you said, it became a different work of art in its own right, just inspired by the spirit of the story, but taking a different turn in some ways. And I think, like you were saying, with adaptations, there are decisions you have to make because the medium is different. Yeah. And those changes, I mean, definitely resulted in a different product. But I think what's great about adaptations is that you can consume both and get the joy of both different perspectives, and those who read the book can bring that to their viewing, and those who watch the movie can bring that context to the reading, and I think both play off each other. But
but actually, but I do have to say that the biggest, I wouldn't say shock, but I would say yeah, it's a source of vexation how there is none of my language there. You know, it's none of my my aesthetics, my sensibility in that movie. So in that sense, this has become something else altogether. Let's put it that way. I did agree when they said that they had to kind of trim everything and choose a thread, right? Precisely for the very reasons that a film cannot have the pages and words that a novel can afford. But I just didn't know the extent. Yeah, but anyway, so lessons learned.
Thank you so much. We really learned so much about the book and about your process today.
My
we really
pleasure.
appreciate you being here. That's our time for now. We're going to bring Ara back on stage to wrap things up. But thank you all for being here, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we have another round of applause, please, everyone, for our speaker and also moderator for today. Yes, thank you so much to Laksmi and also Tara for the very insightful and interesting discussion for today. And we do hope everyone here gained a lot of insights from this event and also this discussion. And everyone, we would like to inform you that we also provide the ebook version of the book, The Birdwoman's Palettes, on our iPads here in Ad America. So if you're interested, you can visit our member booth here in our exhibition area. And also we provide snacks and also beverages outside on our exhibition area. So you guys can please feel free to enjoy them. And if you guys are interested in attending more events here in Ad America, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, X, Facebook, and also YouTube at AT America. And also please visit our website at www.atamerica.or.id for more information and also updates about the events here in Ad America. Once again, thank you so much everyone for coming to our event today. Yes, thank you very much once again. My name is Ara, and see you at the next Ad America event. Thank you, everyone.